Good morning. We're talking today about painting it purple. This is Alzheimer's Week, and Friday, September the 21st, right, is the day you are supposed to wear purple. And you're supposed to put purple on if you have a business, on your house. You can put ribbons, balloons, or anything, but it is the awareness of Alzheimer's. Kathy Vancleave is with me, and she is with the State Department, right?
Department of Mental Health.
Mental Health. And I spoke with Kathy last year when this came up, and it's amazing the difference from this year to last year. Absolutely. Even how far it's come and what we've learned. And one of the things that Kathy and I were talking about earlier is that the dollars that are not being put to Alzheimer's, and you know, it's kind of bad when you just start out with the money, but it really was on my brain for some reason. I was just thinking about, you know, we do a lot of activities for breast cancer, for anything, which is wonderful, and I don't think it should not be for that, but because Alzheimer's is close to my heart, just as it is Kathy's for other reasons, I'm always aware of it. But tell us a little bit about what's changed this year.
Well, you know, one of the things that we're seeing is that, and I think you would agree, there are several causes. Every person has a personal tie. But in the latest studies that we've seen, from 2002 to 2008, the death rate to Alzheimer's disease went up 66%. And in that same time frame, deaths related to prostate cancer, heart disease, breast cancer, HIV, and stroke all went down anywhere from 3% to 27%.
Really?
Really. And if you compare the federal dollars that have been allocated for research projects in each of those areas, it's exponentially different than what it is for Alzheimer's disease. So there's a huge need there.
Well, you know, now, see, I was kind of under the impression that you didn't die from Alzheimer's, that you died from a stroke or a heart or, you know, some type of blockage. Is that not true?
It's actually a myth.
Oh, really?
Now, many times with Alzheimer's disease, we know that it's a progressive worsening of symptoms. A person can also have other physical problems that can attribute, you know, can ultimately cause death. But if they don't have that, what we often see, and we're beginning to see more and more of, is that the brain actually loses its ability to process not only information, but even to break down the most basic steps of breathing, nutrition, those kinds of things. And that's as the disease attacks the brain stem. So we are beginning to see more deaths attributed to Alzheimer's disease, whereas in the past, maybe 10 years ago, there might have been attributed to something else. But having said that, we're also seeing more and more cases.
Why do you think we're seeing more and more cases?
Well, I'll be the first person to tell you, I'm not a physician, and I'm not a researcher.
But just in your opinion.
But I think a lot of it has to do, we're hearing so much more about it, and that's a good thing.
Oh, yes.
And that we're increasing awareness, we're opening that dialogue. We are seeing, of course, you know, the baby boomers are here. We've been talking about the baby boomers coming, and they're coming, well, they're here. And as they age,
Listen, I already told you I fit everything on there.
Risk factors go in there too, but there's so many other things. I mean, you think about our diet, you think about environmental things. There's just all sorts of things that factor into that.
Do you think that Alzheimer's is hereditary?
There are some schools of thought that it is, and we do know that there is a genetic component to Alzheimer's disease, especially younger onset Alzheimer's, and that's where you see the onset before age 65. So,
how young are you aware of anyone that's had Alzheimer's?
Well, that's a very loaded question, because
if
a person, and the reason I say that is that in the general population, you have late onset, which is at age 65, and younger onset, which is you begin to see problems about mid-40s, early 50s. We are seeing more and more cases of younger onset Alzheimer's. Many times there are other factors that go along with that, such as a history of traumatic brain injury, the genetic component, those kinds of things.
So a brain injury could possibly lead to Alzheimer's.
It could.
I mean, I know it's
one of the
risk
risk factors.
Yeah.
It is, and that's when you're looking at the trauma that happens to the brain and accelerating that process.
Well, any age of having Alzheimer's is so sad, but certainly that early onset with a younger person is
one of the things that we see too, and I had a conversation not too long ago with a family that's dealing with younger onset, and the family member said, no one thinks about a junior high student having a parent at home with Alzheimer's.
Oh, that's right. It's supposed to be the grandparent.
It's supposed to be the grandparent or the great-grandparent. But oftentimes we do see that as well in younger onset. So also, if the person has Down syndrome, we do see a higher correlation of Alzheimer's and Down syndrome. And those rates, or the acceleration for that is about 20 years prior to the general population. So you may have someone in their late 40s, early 50s that begins to develop symptoms, or someone in their 30s or 40s that could develop that. So, and that's usually in correlation with Down syndrome. So,
you know, to me, and this is just my opinion, we don't hear as much about it. We just don't hear about Alzheimer's. I mean, we hear it, we know what it is, but as far as a discussion that goes on with like colon cancer or breast cancer or any of the other cancers, to me, because it's not a cancer, maybe that's it. Maybe
well, there's not a
survivor.
survivor.
Well, that's true.
And usually one of the things that we often deal with is that people with Alzheimer's disease don't survive. Their families survive. And many times, once they've gone through this, and you know because you've been there, it is such a draining disease that's just drains from the family that many times they're done, you know, and they, you know, they don't have the effort or the energy that it takes to pour back into that. There are other families that are, you know, once we have several folks in support groups that long after their loved one has passed away, they maintain their participation in the support group so that they can be a help to other people that are going through the disease process. So, you know, I think when you think about Alzheimer's disease, we tend to have a mental picture of a aging woman who's either wandering or is, you know, alone and all by herself, and that's, you know, nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, and you know, when you said that, I've never thought about the fact they don't get well. And so, whereas if maybe people think if we put more research into this, they'll get well. What do you think about the drugs that are available?
The medications that are available right now, there's 4 Alzheimer medications that are used. 3 are one type of or certain classification of drug, and then the other one is used in combination with that. Those first 3 are Aricept, Exelon, and Razidine. Those are anticholinesterase inhibitors, which means they basically help the brain to produce acetylcholine, which slows down the worsening of symptoms. It helps to retain memory for longer. Namenda is the 4th drug, and that's usually used in combination with one of the other 3. Those medications are designed to slow down the progression, so the earlier that they're started, the better benefit that they have. And I've had people with Alzheimer's disease tell me that they can tell a difference when they take the medication. Now, there's still, you know, different schools of thought as to whether or not it's benefit later in the disease process. That's a discussion you need to have with a physician. But one of the things that we do see with those drugs is oftentimes there's GI side effects. But Exelon comes in a patch, so it does help to reduce those side effects a little bit. So anytime that someone asks me about that, my encouragement is to go ahead and open up that dialogue with your doctor. If you can start it and tolerate it, go ahead and start that medication. And then if you don't see a drastic improvement, but you don't see a big decline, that means it's working, leave it alone. But whatever you do, do not start or stop the medication without discussing it with your physician first. Always talk to your doctor about that.
We're going to do some more talking with Cassie. I hope you'll watch for the next video. But the main thing again I want to tell you is paint it purple. Show it to them again.
Paint it purple.
Paint it purple Friday. And it can be a vest, a top, a bow, whatever. Have a bow in your little girl's hair Friday. Paint it purple. We'll be looking for your purple on Friday.